The Royal Mail Ship, RMS Titanic, was designed to be one of the greatest achievements of an era of prosperity, confidence, and propriety known as the Gilded Age. The transatlantic steamship business was intensely competitive as advances were made in ship design, size, and speed. White Star Line, one of the industry leaders, focused on size and elegance rather than just speed. In 1907, White Star Line's managing director J. Bruce Ismay and Lord James Purry, chairman of White Star Line's shipbuilder, Harland and Wolff, conceived of 3 magnificent steamships that would set a new standard for comfort, elegance, and safety. The first 2 were to be named Olympic and Titanic. The latter name was chosen by Ismay to convey a sense of overwhelming size and strength. The third would be Britannic. Building the Titanic. It took a year to design the first 2 ships. Construction of the Olympic started in December 1908, followed by the Titanic in March 1909. The Belfast shipyards of Harland and Wolff had to be redesigned to accommodate the immense projects, while White Star's pier in New York City had to be lengthened to enable the ships to dock. During the 2 years it took to complete the Titanic's hull, publicity about the ship's magnificence made Titanic a legend before its first cruise. The launch of the completed steel hull on May 31, 1911, was heavily publicized. The ship was then fitted out, which involved the construction of the ship's many facilities and systems, its elaborate woodwork, and elegant decor. As the date of Titanic's maiden voyage approached, the completed Olympic suffered a collision and required extensive repairs, increasing the workload at Harland and Wolff, which was struggling to complete Titanic on schedule. Titanic's maiden voyage was delayed from March 20 to April 10. About the ship. The Titanic was a massive ship, 883 feet long, 92 feet wide, and displacing, or weighing, 52,310 long tons. A long ton is 2240 pounds. It was 175 feet tall from the keel to the top of the 4 stacks or funnels, almost 35 feet of which was below the waterline. The Titanic was taller above the water than most urban buildings of the time. There were 3 real smokestacks, with a 4th dummy stack added to increase the impression of its size and power, and to vent smoke from the ship's numerous galleys. At the time, the Titanic was the largest ever movable man-made object. While the ship itself was massive, it was also designed to be a symbol of modern safety technology. It had a double hull of 1-inch thick steel plates and 16 watertight compartments sealed by massive doors that could be instantly triggered by a single electric switch on the bridge or automatically by electric water sensors. The original design called for 32 lifeboats, but White Star Line thought the boat deck would look cluttered and reduced the number to 16 for a total lifeboat capacity of 1,178. This capacity exceeded the current regulations requiring space for 962, even though Titanic was capable of carrying some 3,500 passengers and crew. The maiden voyage of the Titanic had more than 2,200 passengers and crew aboard. The press labeled the ship unsinkable. Accommodations. The accommodations aboard the Titanic were considered the most modern and luxurious on any ocean and included electric light and heat in every room, electric elevators, a swimming pool, a squash court, a Turkish bath, a gymnasium with a mechanical horse and camel to keep riders fit, and staterooms and first-class facilities to rival the best hotels. First-class passengers could glide down a 6-story, glass-domed grand staircase to enjoy the finest cuisine in the first-class dining saloon that spanned the width of the ship. For those who desired a more intimate atmosphere, the Titanic also offered the chic palm court and veranda restaurants and the festive Café Parisien. The liner had 2 musical ensembles rather than the standard one, and 2 libraries, first and second class. Even the third class, or steerage, cabins were more luxurious than the first-class cabins on other steamships and boasted amenities like indoor toilet facilities that some of Titanic's emigrant passengers had not enjoyed in their own homes. The doomed maiden voyage of the Titanic. The ship's much-publicized maiden voyage lured British nobility, members of American society and industrialists, as well as many poor immigrants hoping to begin a new life in America. The journey began at Southampton, England, at noon on April 10, 1912. By nightfall, Titanic had stopped in Cherbourg, France, to pick up additional passengers. That evening it sailed for Queenstown, Ireland, and at 1:30 p.m. on April 11, the ship headed into the Atlantic Ocean toward New York City. The weather was pleasant and clear, and the water temperature was about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The winter of 1912 had been unusually mild, and unprecedented amounts of ice had broken loose from the Arctic regions. Titanic was equipped with Marconi's new wireless telegraph system, and the 2 Marconi operators kept the wireless room running 24 hours a day. On Sunday, April 14th, the fifth day at sea, Titanic received 5 different ice warnings, but Captain Edward Smith was not overly concerned. The ship steamed ahead at 22 knots, and the White Star's managing director J. Bruce Ismay hoped to arrive in New York a day ahead of schedule. On the night of April 14, 1912, wireless operator Jack Phillips was busy sending passengers messages to Cape Race, Newfoundland, to be relayed inland to friends and relatives. He received a 6th ice warning that night, but didn't realize how close Titanic was to the position of the warning, and the message never reached Captain Smith or the officer on the bridge. By all accounts, the night was uncommonly clear and dark, moonless but faintly glowing with a sky full of stars. The sea was unusually calm and flat, like glass according to many survivors. The lack of waves made it even more difficult to spot icebergs since there was no telltale white water breaking at their edges. At 11:40 p.m. lookout, Fred Fleet in the Crow's Nest spotted an iceberg dead ahead. He notified the bridge, and First Officer William Murdoch ordered the ship turned hard to port. He signaled the engine room to reverse direction, full astern. The ship turned slightly, but it was too large, was moving too fast, and the iceberg was too close. Just seconds later, one of the greatest maritime disasters in history began unfolding. Within hours, over 1,500 lives were lost. What really happened to the unsinkable Titanic remained a mystery until September 1, 1985, when a joint American and French team would discover it. Only recently has the significance of Titanic most notably been given by Northern Ireland, where it was built by Harland and Wolff in the capital city, Belfast. While the rest of the world embraced the glory and tragedy of Titanic in its birth city, Titanic remained a taboo subject throughout the 20th century. The sinking brought tremendous grief and was a blow to the city's pride. Its shipyard was also a place many Catholics regarded as hostile. In the latter half of the century, during a 30-year sectarian conflict, the Titanic was a reminder of the lack of civil rights that in part contributed to the Troubles. While the fate of Titanic remained a well-known story within local households throughout the 20th century, commercial investment in projects recalling RMS Titanic's legacy was modest because of these issues. After the Troubles and Good Friday Agreement, the number of overseas tourists visiting Northern Ireland dramatically increased to 30 million, 100% rise by 2008. It was subsequently identified in the Northern Ireland Tourism Board's Strategic Framework for Action 2004-2007 that the significance of and interest in Titanic globally